Hey guys, how's it going? Kuyo here, and today, after a very tumultuous few weeks of midterms, I'd like to return back to something that I kind of banned for a bit, and that being the Prey lore series. But today, I want to do something slightly different than just typical lore, though I will eventually get to lore in the future, or at least more typical lore. And that is that I want to explore the kind of plot twists of Prey, the things that you shouldn't really be listening to unless you've played the game, which, if you're watching this video, you've probably already played through. But in particular, what I want to cover is the implications of the ending of Prey, and I'll get into the actual ending in just a second, but what I want to cover is the implications of that ending, the general themes of it, everything involved in that ending, and maybe even more explore what that ending means for a potential future game, the world of Prey itself, and especially what it means for us, the player, when it comes to the future of Prey. So with that said, roll that intro. Now, to start the video, like I do with literally every video I've ever made in my life involving lore, I have to firstly say that everything here is pretty much just my interpretation of things, since this is a what-if video rather than a completely lore video, or at least a video that is purely based off facts from the game. However, I will mention that everything I say is based off of implications from things already mentioned in the game, as well as other sort of connections I'm making from real-life things that we already know about, and even some real-life theories and things of the like. On top of that, though, I want to issue the world's biggest spoiler warning right now, and that being that if you don't want to be spoiled on Prey or its ending, which I'll tell you right now is one hell of a plot twist, don't watch this video. Go play Prey. It's really cheap on Steam. Like, I think it went on sale for like $5 a while ago. And go play the game. And then come back to this video if you really care about that. That's it. If you don't really care about the plot of Prey and all that, you can keep watching. I won't have any timestamps here, since this entire video would be just a spoiler for you if I let you continue watching and you didn't really care about timestamps and all that stuff. That said, I think I've covered this entire little bit enough, so let's get right into the video. So to start off, how exactly does Prey end? So, the ending of Prey, in general, just to kind of sum everything up, obviously not going into detail, turns out that everything in the game is a simulation carried out to determine whether a Typhon made, or at least a Typhon with more human aspects, or given what I assume to be mirror neurons, can do good things, or can be human. And whether or not giving that Typhon the human characteristics even makes it human. And so the entirety of the game is just a test for that. It's a giant simulation, which is why every once in a while you'll see big flashes of, like, visions and stuff of, like, what the Typhon hears or sees outside of the actual simulation. And turns out the whole reason that they put what, to quote Alex himself, what humans can do into the Typhon was because turns out that old Morgan went through the plan to actually just screw over all of humanity and side with the Typhon and try and communicate with them, which ended up apparently ending in horrible failure and the Earth being overrun by Typhon. And so the whole point of this is to basically get an ally who has Typhon abilities and can help us without us being corrupted by the Typhon like Morgan was. Or at least that's my interpretation of why they did it. But now that that's kind of out of the way, and for anyone who doesn't really understand it or didn't understand it, I think that was a sufficient explanation, hopefully. That said, there's two choices that you can make once that little ending bit is over. First is to obviously join the resistance, as I'll call it, and help fight back against the Typhon and reclaim humanity and Earth. and the second is to kill them all. I think it actually says kill them all on the thing. I might be misremembering. In which case you just end up grabbing Alex's arm, swallowing him up, typical Typhon stuff. And that's kind of the choice that I want to explore. Because, say for instance, that the Typhon chooses to kill them all. Would that prove that maybe the Typhon itself, that was given what I assume to be the mirror neurons or the DNA or something like that of Morgan, did this because they're a Typhon and they can't determine between good and evil? Or is it because they're a Typhon who is human now, and they've all of a sudden decided that they don't like humans because of how they were treated during the game itself, or the simulation? And if the Typhon chooses to help the humans, why? Is it because, obviously the player character chooses, but say for instance this was a Typhon going through a simulation and trying to understand this, would they choose to help the humans because they feel human? Or because they see what's been happening to the humans is terrible? And who's to say that the whole concept of putting what we can do into the Typhon is even making them sentient or conscious? Because, for all we know, that's not what defines consciousness in the Prey universe. But then that's also diving way too heavily into the concept of the consciousness, sentience, etc. Which then kind of segues us into what the point of the video was, which is that I want to explore what exactly the implications of this are on the Earth. See, in the little glimpse of the Earth that we see, the entire Earth is scattered with I forgot the exact name of the webbing, but it's like this kind of webbing thing that the Typhon have, that they spread around all through space stations or wherever they are. It's made by the Weavers. And it's what I assume, or at least what it seems like, to be like a neural network that connects them to the hive mind, or connects them to the alpha Typhon. And so when we see it on Earth, it's everywhere. So perhaps when we see Earth, it really has been taken over completely. Maybe organisms have been integrated into the Typhon ecosystem. Maybe everything about Earth has been integrated into the Typhon ecosystem. Because from the looks of it, it seems like Alex and all the operators, maybe even some other humans, are in like a bunker or underground or in a facility that's not been touched by the Typhon yet. And so what I'm wondering is, how deep really is the influence or the corruption of the Typhon on Earth? Has it gone to the point where, like I said, to the actual ecology of the Earth, where everything is changed, where the ecosystems have changed to kind of adhere to the Typhon? Or is it surface level, where they've kind of conquered, spread all the Weaver stuff around, and just made it their home, while leaving most of the fauna and flora untouched? To which I kind of have an answer, and it is what I implied earlier, in that I think they've assimilated all of Earth. They've made pretty much everything a variant of Typhon. They've made everything basically a part of the Typhon ecosystem. Because the whole purpose of the Typhon is to adapt. The reason they're made out of such a strong sort of material is because they evolved, or at least I assume they evolved, for adaptation. They rapidly adapt to their environments, hence the reason why we see things like phantoms, technopaths pop up so quickly. And why, after breaking out of containment, they were able to basically conquer the entire space station with very little resistance despite all the modern weaponry. And how it took Morgan, a super, buffed out human being with tons of neuromods, to defeat them. And even at that, it's kind of hard. And so that's my reasoning for why I think the Typhon were able to assimilate, and why I think they assimilated. And that, on top of how the entirety of the Earth, from the kind of little scenes we see, are pretty much basically, it looks like it's no longer alive. You don't really see the sun. It might be nighttime, I don't know, but you don't really see the sun. You just see the coral. That's what I think it's called, everywhere, and it's definitely a telltale sign for me that basically all of humanity is dead. Most of the ecosystems are dead. Everything's probably just a version of the Typhon. And that they might, for all we know, they might have even taken in some human stuff and kind of become slightly more intelligent. But that's just me speculating even more than I am right now. And kind of pulling back to the Morgan that we see, or at least the Typhon that was given human stuff into them at the end of Prey, maybe that Typhon has larger implications about what they are than just that they're a link. Maybe this Typhon, just simply by being a Typhon that's become human or human-like, is a connection between species. I understand them being like a link when it comes to communication and getting around things involving the Typhon, but maybe this creation at the end means so much more. Maybe it was the key, and maybe it was like probably humanity's last effort to getting around this entire invasion by the Typhon. And maybe it's the key via the coral or something like that to defeating the Typhon by tapping into their neural networks, which is what I think, I don't remember exactly, the coral actually are. And even the fact that Typhon Morgan, which is what I'll call this little thing that we see at the end of the game, exists, means so much. Like, how did it even come to be? Was it even human in the first place? Was it even biological? How was there a blending of the biology between the two beings? And how exactly does this relate to the technology of the Prey world at the time? And what does this mean for Earth and how humans have advanced? And how even have they managed to make such an advanced thing that they couldn't do before? Especially without the help of a genius like Morgan. Which obviously is assuming that old Morgan is dead or that he's no longer in action. And so, with all those implications made and all those guesses that the entire world is taken over, which is obvious, kind of implied by the ending, I'd like to also discuss the implications of everything that I mentioned. And those being that maybe this changes everything when it comes to humanity. Maybe there's like a high level of consciousness or existence, kind of like the whole plot of Half-Life 2, where an alien species so above humans has basically forced humans into a cage where they can't move. Maybe it's kind of that kind of situation where we're kind of blocked in every direction. And the only real key out is this creation by Alex and potentially other people. And maybe at this point the Earth is gone, and for all we know, the plot of the next Prey game, if it ever does happen, is just to try and salvage what we can. Or maybe it's going to be kind of like a Fallout game, where it's just picking up the scraps after defeating the menace and letting humanity recover. But that said, it's probably the plot for a future game. And I'll be real with you, I've honestly ranted way too long on this, and despite this not even being a rant, I think it's about time to wrap up. And by wrapping up, I want to try and connect all the dots, in that I feel that the ending of Prey was ingenious. It was well paced, it was well thought out, there are hints about it throughout the entire game, and its implications about what it means to be human, what it means to have a consciousness, what it means to exist, are amazing. They're so introspective, especially given the choices that we have to make. And on top of that, Prey itself is just an amazing game. And a game that perhaps doesn't need a sequel. But that said, thanks for watching the video. At this point, you guys know what to do. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you really liked it, subscribe. If you disliked, dislike. But please, once again, tell me why. I hate when people leave ghost dislikes. But that said, thanks once again for watching. And never forget that it was all just a mind game. See ya. Kuyo out.